Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the latest edition of Across the Cap. This is a yearly occurrence for me. Always enjoy this day. NBA trade deadline day is here. There were no Cavs trades, but that's not slowing us down. We're going through each and every trade that was made today. We're talking every move from top to bottom on Network 216 across the Cavs. Let's do it. All right, folks, here are the names that were not traded, that were maybe expected to be moved or have been in some of the names that have been discussed as possibilities for teams. Andre Drummond, DeJounte Murray, Kyle Kuzma, Tyus Jones, Dorian Finney-Smith, John Collins, D'Angelo Russell, Chris Paul, Andrew Wiggins. That is just a small number of players. There will probably be a buyout market. Malcolm Brogdon was not moved. The Blazers added Delano Banton, but they did not trade anybody. They're in an interesting position. But those are the ones that were not moved. Let's go through all the trades in order. There were a few very important trades, but not all that many. But let's do it. Utah and Detroit got the fun started. We're not including the Marvin Bagley, Danilo Gallinari trade between Detroit and Washington. These are all trades that happened this week. None of those were really crazy. They swapped a couple of times overall. Utah gets PJ Tucker. New update. PJ Tucker will stay with the Clippers. He has not appeared in a game since November 29th. That's another name. Bones Highland also did not move. He's going to stay with the Clippers the rest of the season. So that's that. Veteran. Kevin Knox to Utah on the 2024 second-round picks and the rights to Gabriel Procida. The Pistons bringing in Simone Fontecchio. He's been starting for Utah the last couple months. His numbers aren't going to wow you, but he has good games. He was fantastic over the summer, playing internationally for Italy, and he brings a lot. Jazz get a B-. Pistons get a B. It's a skilled forward and a replacement for Bojan. Utah opens up playing time for some of the younger guys. Memphis gets Lamar Stevens, 2027 second-round pick. And a 2030 second-round pick. Boston gets Xavier Tillman. B+ for the Celtics. Give the Grizzlies a C+. Boston adds depth to their front court. Cornet and Queta, perhaps an upgrade. A slightly smaller option. Tillman does really cut his chops on the defensive end. Memphis gets a couple of second-round picks as future assets. And they add our old pal, Lamar Stevens. And with everything going on in Memphis, he could get a whole lot of playing time and a chance to earn a long-term contract in the NBA. Detroit and Minnesota. Pistons getting Troy Brown Jr., Shake Milton, a second-round pick. Timberwolves get Monte Morris. I give both teams a decent grade for this move. A B+ to Detroit because they upgrade their veterans with this move. This was their second trade of yesterday. And in addition to that, they add some mentors. Milton played in a good system in Philly. Monte Morris only played 66 minutes for the Pistons over 6 games. But he's got a lot that he can bring to the table as a mentor and on the floor as a Conley backup and injury insurance as well. It's an upgrade over Jordan McLaughlin, who does give up a lot of height but does prove to be a good defender. All of those playoff games with the Denver Nuggets certainly will come in handy now that he's here. Sixers and Pacers. That was the biggest trade of the day at the moment it happened. Philly got Buddy Hield. Pacers got Furkan Korkmaz, Marcus Morris, and 3 second-round picks. The Pacers packaged Marcus Morris in a separate trade to the Spurs, which we'll get to, and then he was later bought out. For me, it's an A for the Sixers. That's an elite shooter, extra floor spacing. If Embiid does come back and you bring Buddy to space it out, he's not exactly J.J. Redick with the way he's been playing this season. But it's very similar to when they had J.J. Redick, a guy that can put it on the floor and can come off screens and knocks down threes at an effective rate. On the Indiana side, it's also an A because you get rid of Buddy, who had been eating up some minutes from Benedict Mathurin. And you also used Morris to get Doug McDermott in a separate trade, which we will get to. The Raptors and Jazz making a weird one. I was very bummed out at this notification because Ochai Agbaji is no longer a member of the Utah Jazz. Toronto picks up Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji. The Jazz get Kyra Lewis Jr., only been with the Raptors for a couple of weeks. Otto Porter and a 2024 first. To me, that's a C+ for the Jazz, this specific trade. I thought Ochai was going to step in after you traded Simone. That did not happen. Olynyk being gone means more minutes for Kessler. Maybe Omer Yurtseven rejoins the rotation for them. I give the Raptors a B+. I think Ochai is a young stud. I know he's only averaging 5 points a game. He hasn't scored more than that over the last 3 weeks. But give him more shots, and he'll obviously score more points. He's an incredible perimeter defender who can guard the best player on the other team. Toronto now has RJ Barrett. They kept Bruce Brown and Ochai as a couple of wings. They're building that pretty well. Olynyk replaces Thad Young, who's now in Brooklyn, and maybe the backup to Jakob Poeltl, who's also sticking around in Toronto. This was a weird one. Gordon Hayward to the Thunder for Trey Mann, Vasilije Micic, and Davis Bertans. There were also some picks involved in this one. I give OKC a B. If Gordon Hayward's healthy, he can be a decent bench scorer. I mean, look at the Thunder's bench rotation. They have guys that can fill in and do a little, but their bench is really no better than those benches they had on the outside of their top guy, outside of Russ and outside of Russ and KD. They never had great benches. Their leading bench scorer this season is Isaiah Joe, who averages 9. They get 6 from Aaron Wiggins. Does not shoot the ball much. Kenrich Williams, Jalen Williams, Ousmane Dieng. Trey Mann was not in the rotation. He's young. We'll give minutes for Charlotte. They've used 18 different players. But the end of their bench, really not very good. This gives you a potentially bona fide 6th man, along with Wallace, Wiggins, and Isaiah Joe. Definitely a fan of Hayward's game when he can be healthy. He did serve as a 6th man for Boston. He can get you 12 to 15 on a bad night. So what can a good night do, right? If you get him 20 to 25 minutes. Charlotte gets a C because Mann might play, but he hasn't shown too much. Micic is already 30 years old, and Davis Bertans is on a bad contract. So I think it's a contract that the Wizards gave him, and then he played for Dallas on it, and then he played for the Thunder, now the Hornets. I don't know if he gets bought out or waived, if he's going to go somewhere, but we'll find out. The Pistons got Daniel House in a trade. They already waived him from Philly just for roster spot purposes. Here was the big one, and I think both teams are going to thrive. The Pistons got Quentin Grimes, Malachi Flynn, Evan Fournier, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. The Knicks brought in Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic. Bojan, a big-time player. He's been with Indiana. He's been with Utah. He's been with Brooklyn, Washington. It's already a 6th team, if you can believe that. Been in the playoffs a lot. Certainly might give the Cavs some trouble. When they're at full strength, they're going to have Burks and Bojan joining Hart on that second unit. The Knicks are wise. They will keep DiVincenzo in that starting lineup, a move that worked wonders. Pistons, big payoff here. Maybe you get some production out of Evan Fournier, who's been resting most of the last year and a half out of the Knicks rotation. You got a couple of seconds to dangle in future trades. And Quentin Grimes is a young man who, if you look at the points per possession he allows on defense, it's number 1 in the NBA. A+ for the Knicks. Burks looking like 6th man of the year good the last month. And then it also gives him a system he's played in. He played with Tom Thibodeau before in New York. And for Detroit, these are a young piece in Grimes. He does a lot. Fournier can come in. And now you've also cleared more playing time for Marcus Sasser, who, rookie out of Houston, behind Cade, has done some good things. The Mavericks and the Wizards getting trady with each other. The Wizards got Rashawn Holmes and picks. Mavs get Daniel Gafford. C for the Wizards, A for the Mavs. Wizards get nothing back. Rashawn Holmes has not been a rotation player the last 3 seasons in the NBA. He was okay in Sacramento as a serviceable big. Daniel Gafford, to me, was a lob threat. He's a nice person to help teach Lively the ropes because Gafford has obviously been younger before. And he's still not exactly old. He went from Chicago to Washington. And it's another lob threat for Luka and Kyrie. Brooklyn and Toronto had fun. Raptors got Dinwiddie. Nets got Schroeder and Thad Young. That's Dennis Schroeder. Nets get a C+. Dennis Schroeder brings experience, and he's maybe a better passer than Dinwiddie. Thaddeus Young has been in Brooklyn before, a veteran, maybe for Nick Claxton. And maybe some of the other bigs that they have right now. And Clowney, who really hasn't been around much. Wilson hasn't been around much. But we'll see what the young guys look like over there. C- for the Raptors. They waived Dinwiddie. So they're just clearing space so that they can have Emmanuel quickly run the point. None of the next several trades are exactly going to sound interesting, other than maybe 2 of them, but we're going to keep going because this next trade might have been one of the biggest. Hornets get Grant Williams, Seth Curry, a 2027 first and 2 seconds. Mavs just get PJ Washington. This is an A- to me for Charlotte. PJ was going to leave. You have 3 years of Grant Williams, who comes from Boston. He's the vice president, right, of the Players Association. His voice matters in the league. You needed someone like that for your locker room, which has been in shambles the last several years. Now you got your coach calling everybody out. Seth Curry can shoot if they opt to keep him around. Maybe he can work with Nick Smith Jr. a little bit more. And some picks for Dallas. It's a possible rental, maybe a long-term solution. PJ can play the 4, and he can also play the 5. And just an update, the Lakers look like, so nope, there are some talks from Shams about Spencer Dinwiddie, and Ashton Hagans is signing a 10-day with the Blazers. This is at 3:23 p.m. He has not played in the NBA since 2020-21. Quality player for John Calipari at Kentucky. And he began 2 games in Minnesota once upon a time. So welcome back to the league, Ashton Hagans. You're coming back. All right. Cool. Anyway, back to the show. PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. See if they're both starting for Dallas. So what a new lineup would be: Luka, Kyrie, Josh Green, perhaps, with Washington and Gafford. You move Lively to the bench, perhaps with Kleba, Derek Jones, and then comprising the rest, of Tim Hardaway and a healthy Dante Exum. They've made a lot of switch shitters to the rotation throughout the year. He's been out for a hot minute. Hopefully he gets out. That's been the story of his career. The Suns got Royce O'Neal and David Roddy, the Grizzlies and Nets all in this. The Nets got 3 second-round picks for Royce. It was unclear what players went where, but the Grizzlies added Yuta Watanabe, a former Net from Phoenix, along with Keita, Bates, Diop, Jordan Goodwin, and Chimezie Metu were in this trade. Don't know who went where with regard to that, but Brooklyn gets a B+ because they pick up second-round picks, and if they get any of these players, that's just more bodies. Suns get an A. That's a huge upgrade. Royce can play the 3, the 4, and even the small ball 5. He's played with KD before in Brooklyn, and he adds a lot of value. He was around Donovan Mitchell and Co. in Utah, so good for the Suns. Bucks got Pat Bev for Cam Payne in a 2027 second. What are the Sixers doing? Him and DeAnthony Melton are your 1-2 lockdown defenders. One starts, one comes off the bench. Weird move, unless he had some issues with Nick Nurse. I don't think that was the case. Bev seemed to be loved in Philly this last half season. The Bulls picked up Patrick Beverley the second half of last season, and look what it did for them. So, with that said, his 5th team in the last 2.5 years, but he brings a lot to the court. So let's see. I love this for the Bucks. Tenacious defender, maybe a missing piece. You can get on Dame on that side of the floor. If you so choose to move Beasley to the bench and you start Beverley, give him more run, you're adding him to the floor and a guy that's going to get under people's skin. Him and Giannis together, that's menacing. Not even from the playing perspective, but just everything that's happened with both of those guys on and off the court these last several years with everybody getting frustrated. They're going to get under everybody's skin. Spurs got Marcus Morris, second-round pick in cash for Doug McDermott. C for the Spurs. It's a future second because they bought out Morris. C+ for the Pacers. McDermott's been there before. He's just an extra shooter. Bucks traded Robin Lopez to Sacramento. They got cash and an open roster spot, which is important. Maybe they could sign on the buyout market. Maybe even consider a reunion with Malcolm Brogdon if he gets bought out to further solidify things, or add Spencer Dinwiddie. And then these other few moves are just the last ones to trickle in. The Celtics got Jaden Springer for a second-round pick. C for Philly, but they opened a roster spot. Springer was an okay guard. Boston adds depth. And then also they had traded Delano Banton to Portland right around 3 o'clock. So he replaces him. Banton's all right. He played in Toronto before. And then Corey Joseph to the Warriors. That's it. It only took, 12, 13 minutes to go through every trade. It was a quiet day The phone blew up, but not at the rates we're expecting. Because 6 years ago today, the Cavaliers brought in George Hill, Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr. They traded Isaiah Thomas, Dwayne Wade, Jay Crowder, Iman Shumpert, Derrick Rose. It was a busy time. Indeed. Now, let's recap that. 6 years ago today, the Cavaliers traded Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, Jay Crowder, among others, to bring in Larry Nance, Jordan Clarkson, George Hill, Rodney Hood. Their first game together against the Celtics on Paul Pierce jersey retirement day, LeBron's like, we got a squad, man. And J.R. Smith was pumped. So, nothing from the Cavs this year, which we should take as a sign that, man, we're feeling good. 7 wins in a row, 33-16, second in the East. What aren't they doing? Losing. Losing? Who said that? They're just winning games. Left and right, side to side, up and down, zigging and zagging. The red-hot Cleveland Cavaliers did not trade Dean Wade. They did not trade George Niang. There's still some roster spots to be had. Craig Porter could be signed to a two-way. They could go 10-day contract. Last year they added Danny Green on the buyout market. Let's see what they choose to do. The big Cav news from today, Philly got Buddy Hield. Milwaukee got Patrick Beverley. And the Knicks got Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic. So this all matters and plays into when the Cavs come out here and they play any of these teams in the postseason. How will these new pieces change what the trajectory would have been? Cleveland beat Milwaukee 2 out of 3 recently. They've had some success against the Sixers as well, even while shorthanded. And the Knicks are, well, they're the test. They played 2 games early in the year back-to-back. It's been a while since then. They're going to meet in March. So we'll get a test. Maybe a taste of what could happen. Even though Mitchell Robinson's out, the Knicks have still played unbelievable. Brunson's an all-star now. He was not last year. It'll be fun to see how it all plays out. That's it for today. The Trade Deadline Show across the Cavs on Network 216. We got some guests coming up on future pods, future episodes. So stick around. You know where to find us. Make sure to subscribe to Network 216 on YouTube. Hit follow on Instagram, on Twitter. Head to Facebook. You want to follow me? I'm at Across Cavs. That's written there on Twitter. At Across the Cavs on Instagram and at Across the Cavs. If you want to chat on LinkedIn, let's do some business. Zach Weiss, Across the Cavs, Network 216. This is the Trade Deadline Special, and we'll see you later. Adios, amigos.